Beginner series, advanced courses, and everything in between, CAD Junkie brings you the best in Modo, SolidWorks, and Rhino video training ever. On the face of the earth. Ever. Get your premium membership and a leg up on your coworkers at cadjunkie.com.
Josh, if engineering were a cataclysmic event, you would be the giant hamster headed toward the eastern seaboard.
A hamster that loves clam chowder.
Clam-eating hamster.
Welcome to Engineer versus Designer.
The podcast
For engineers,
product designers,
and people who blend technology and sport into all sorts of awesomeness. My name is Josh.
and my name is Adam. Each week, we will bring you the fresh squeezed product design goodness straight from the earlobes of our esteemed guests.
This week we'll be speaking with Stefan Andrén, former product design director at Nike Plus, and
Founder of Krown Lab in Portland, Oregon.
where he creates custom iconic architectural products.
Aside, of course, from making my Casio look really outdated, he has also succeeded in making me very jealous about designing running watches at Nike, and my dreams are smashed forever because, because he's awesome.
Welcome to the show, Stefan. Now, you live in Portland, Oregon, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, if you were able to have Portland's own Stumptown coffee and those wonderful Voodoo donuts delivered to your bedside on a silver platter every morning, but in order to do so, you would have to eat them in a Speedo standing at the bus stop, would you do it?
Honestly, I'm more of a Vivo coffee kind of guy. Another good little coffee place here.
So many.
Yeah,
But being European, I don't really need a reason to wear a Speedo, do I?
I guess not.
I couldn't have put that
Good
better.
point.
Very, very good. Today, EVD listeners, I am speaking with Stefan Andrén, founder of Krown Lab in Portland, Oregon. Yes, Stefan has worked with some of the biggest companies and brands in the world, including Nike, Apple, Microsoft, Samsung, Philips, and Motorola.
Wow.
He's also received a significant press in everything from Business Week to ID Magazine, Wired, goodness, Dwell, and Interior Design. So, good grief, man. Not to mention, you've won IDSA awards, IDEA awards, and just were the keynote speaker, I believe, at IDSA, the IDSA conference. Yeah. Stefan, how did this start for you? How did you get into design, and where does your mojo come from?
Yeah, originally I came to the States to play tennis and study architecture. I didn't even know about industrial design, but while I was in architectural school early on, I kind of stumbled across it, and I remember still to this day being, so surprised. I'm like, you can actually do this stuff for a living? There's a job doing this? So I switched and never looked back.
Now, where did you come to the States from?
From Sweden.
Oh.
Yeah, so I originally
Beautiful.
came to the States to. I had a scholarship to play tennis in college, and so school was paid for.
So was it a tough transition to come to America and eat the bread here?
There were tougher transitions than bread.
Do you still play tennis too?
No,
Not so much.
I play other sports. I prefer squash these days more than tennis, but tennis was great.
Great. Well, we'll talk about Krown Lab here in a few minutes, but recently you worked with Phosphor watches, designing Touch Time, the digital touchscreen watch. It's a fully funded Kickstarter project, $50,000 in 12 hours. How did you get involved with this project, and how does it differ from, say, working on a timepiece at Nike?
Originally, I was approached by one of the founders of Phosphor, who I had worked with while at Nike. So that's kind of how I got involved.
Okay.
And there's some difference. I mean, fundamentally, you go through the same steps to reach the end goal, whether no matter where you design a watch but how you get to the end goal is a little bit different. I mean, at Nike, we were cranking out new watches, lines of new watches twice a year. And with some of the parameters being defined on at least on some projects, because we were building upon established market segmentation such as running or training, men's and women's and so on. Working with Phosphor, being a smaller and younger company, there's more of a clean slate with room to truly define things from scratch. So it's a little bit different.
Now, Stefan, you are someone who successfully trotted through the corporate design house landscape and made it out alive. Not merely alive, but you are apparently thriving with your own design house today and consulting on all kinds of cool stuff. You are obviously an idea guy. Now, on the show, we have a segment where we introduce a new idea, and our idea for you is this. We have a new watch design called the Muffin Plus.
Ah, yes.
It's a touchscreen watch with GPS, and its only function, besides looking awesome, is to tell you the location of freshly baked muffins in the area. Is that a good idea or a bad one?
I think that sounds like a great idea. You could wear the Muffin Plus on one wrist to eat as many muffins as possible, and then wear a Nike Plus Fuel Band on the other to make sure you work it all off.
There you go.
It's like a yin and yang thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about balance, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. This is a wonderful idea, but it also brings up another thought. Versatility. Okay, so how has working on small projects for startups, smaller companies, different from working with bigger companies? You talked a little bit about this, but we assume there's more freedom, more room for innovation on the small projects. Is that true, or is it the opposite?
I mean, it seems like with a big company behind you, you could do a lot of things you can't do with a startup, and vice versa.
You're right. As I mentioned earlier, there is more freedom working with a small company in one sense, as in you have sometimes more room to help define truly everything down to the foundation. But in other ways, there are additional challenges when you don't have a swoosh on your business cards, and that tend to make a lot of things possible. Vendors, trying very, very hard to appease or for a chance to work with a big brand. So when you work for a smaller company, you have to design, I think, very smart. Sometimes that means help define things to a greater extent, as in beyond designing, the aesthetics of the product and a rough, perhaps, suggestion for how it be manufactured. Go to a greater length there to working with the vendors or the rest of the cross-functional team to kind of help define things and make things happen that way.
It's a much different kind of politic. It's a much different kind, you're working with a large group of people as well. There's a different dynamic.
Yeah, it is. It is different dynamic. And then I think also, sometimes you have to do a little bit more risk mitigation, due to vendor resources,
All right.
But, yeah.
Excellent. Stay tuned for next week, where we will discuss yet another idea you can claim as your own to impress your friends.
Welcome back, EVD listeners. Today we have the great pleasure of speaking with design madman Stefan Andrén, product designer and founder of Krown Lab.
We wanted to have Stefan on the show because he has a wealth of experience working with large companies, startups, and everything in between. Now, you've worked with a lot of different companies and different kinds of situations, including like Scott Wilson at Minimal. But you're well known for your time at Nike and doing a lot of sport-related designs. And you said you came from playing tennis. Is that how you got hooked up with Nike? Is through tennis, or is that just a coincidence?
That's a complete coincidence. Basically, my experience at Nike was great. I'm happy for every day I was there.
How did you get started there? How did you get hooked up?
I was working for Motorola in Milan when I was living there, and was recruited by Nike. From there, I had a few friends that worked there. Scott was one of them, and they were doing really, really great work, and so I was easily sold on joining them.
Now, Krown Labs, this really interesting products that you guys are doing. How did that get started?
Yeah, it's a company had an interesting start when I moved to Portland. I started doing some architectural work, and one of the projects got good coverage in print media, such as Dwell and 10 by 10 architecture, things like that. Mm-hmm. And on this project, for budget reasons, much of the interior hardware was designed from scratch rather than bought from existing companies. And because what Krown Lab does is, we do high-end contemporary architectural hardware for residential and commercial interior space.
Really beautiful.
And so basically, and some of these custom solutions were covered in the articles when they came out, and people started calling and emailing. It's like, where can I buy that? Where can I buy that hardware? I figured for the longest time they would go away, but it just it just never did. So after about 3 years, I did a market analysis a little bit deeper. I mean, I knew it was hard to find stuff that at least I thought looked good out there, but I didn't know there was such a desert. So I did a more thorough kind of scan of the market and decided to give it a go. And that was about 4 years ago. So it's still a young company, but we're seeing good growth even in this economy.
Now, I know that when you're working as a staff designer at a big company making stuff, your purview of the entire design process is pretty narrow. You get to see just the design aspect. And there's a lot of stuff that happens before and after a designer's job is over toward making a product real. And now you're working at Krown Lab making real products and kind of presumably being involved in a much broader swath of this process. How has starting Krown Lab and making your own products for market affected your perception of what it takes to make ideas real? How has it changed your perspective?
Well, I guess two things. It has changed my perspective. I mean, obviously, Krown Lab has given me even greater than working with a young company like Phosphor, given me a chance to truly start from scratch, as in defining the product strategy, price points, market segmentation, and so on, and then go through the entire creative process, and then also follow through all the way, not just through into production, which is how we work with Phosphor, but also, the very tail end, as in, overseeing production and making sure that parts and products, over and over again have consistent high quality. So that's the first thing that I think it has kind of taught me, what I've learned. I think it's also given me good confidence that products that I and now we at Krown Lab believe are the right things to do will be found compelling by others as well. I mean, when the all this interior hardware that's kind of got Krown Lab started, that had nothing to do with pleasing anybody else. It wasn't ever intended originally for mass marketing. It was just what I believe was the right thing to do, and that seemed to get traction, and that has been a nice confidence boost. And we really nurture that at Krown Lab. If we feel that we're doing the right thing, we're willing to go for it.
Excellent. We've seen some excellent examples of your work. A lot of really cool consumer electronics stuff. What are a couple of your favorite projects that you've worked on so far?
That's a tough question. I've truly enjoyed working with Phosphor on Touch Time. That's for sure. It's been a super cool project. And designing for Krown Lab is also very special. If I would mention one more thing, I'm working with a young British company named Atomic Floyd, and they do very high quality headphones. And this is also definitely a favorite. It's like designing tech jewelry, which I really like.
I mean, what's your favorite part of the design process? What really gets you excited about making things?
That's also hard to say. More than a particular part of the process, I like that I'm today able to work very holistically, as we talked about, truly help design the complete consumer experience, not just designing the product, but also the packaging and the UI, and also being part of the broader team that defines product strategy, and then working with the manufacturing and development teams to making sure that the design goes through the development gauntlet, intact, so to speak.
I mean, how does it? What's your process like? What do you? How do you? Let's say you have a brief that you've worked out your market segment, you know what you're doing, and then you're ready to start to do the traditional industrial design tasks. How does that work for you? What process? What tools do you like to use in that process?
Well, I'm sure it's going to sound pretty boring and ordinary. I mean, I think I try to initially just throw down ideas very, very rough. I mean, I carry a notebook and when something, and try to carve out time to focus on something, but then also be ready if an idea just comes to me, kind of put it down, not worrying about details or that it's ever going to be shown to somebody else. I mean, and then kind of just accumulate thoughts and notions of what the designs could be, and then I mean, certainly, a little bit more formal sketching, but I think there's a lot less of that today than earlier. I personally really like Illustrator. I think it's you can work out a lot of the proportions working in orthographic views, and if I when I go into 3D, I actually like Alias is one of the programs I've used a lot, because it's you can quickly kind of define shapes that are complicated and so on, and push and pull CVs and so on. So I would say those are probably my main tools. Depending on what the product is, I still like to make mock-ups. A lot of times what we do is as soon as we can get something in 3D, whether it's Alias or somebody on the team, working in SolidCAD, I love to do printouts, 3D printouts like Objet or other companies doing similar things. They're so inexpensive now, and they're so quick, and I think that's a great way to kind of confirm what you're working on. And then a lot of times we then carve them so we can kind of play with the shapes by hand rather than making a complete mock-up from scratch. We can kind of modify a 3D printout. I like that kind of hands-on, using your hands a little bit rather than just pumping CAD.
Absolutely. I mean, and speaking of hands-on, I think one of the things that a lot of designers who've been around a little bit longer lament is the lack of sketching these days. And then there are others who really embrace the kind of newer digital workflows and think that they're great. And one of the questions that comes to mind when I think about these things is the fact that it seems like when we teach college students and start to tell them how to put together portfolios, we really heavily emphasize sketching still as an absolutely critical skill for getting a job. And I know that when I look at portfolios, it's one of the first things I look for is the ability to communicate via hand sketching. But, people keep telling us time and time again, well, I used to do a lot of sketching, but I don't these days so much anymore. Is that requirement that we put on college students outdated, or is it?
I think it's still important. I think that maybe in the past the emphasis of being able to do a automotive quality hand rendering has gone away, and I think that's good. I don't think that skill is as important today as it was 10 years ago, because there are so many great tools, computer tools, that allows you to do that in a faster and more dynamic way. But I think what's still important, and don't know how or when that would go away, is the ability to throw down a very, very quick sketch just to the level that you can at least understand the idea yourself and that you can communicate to somebody else, whether it's somebody on the team.
Right.
I think I can't imagine at least working completely without sketching. It would slow me down, and I think it would stifle me.
Well, I think also looking at someone's sketchbook kind of gives you a window into their thought process is probably a lot of it as well, right?
And the same goes for engineering, actually. I mean, being able to sketch and put that idea forward, definitely, I always recommend a sketch class or being able to take some drawing classes in there with engineering. But
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the engineers that I work with, our in-house team and with our partners like Phosphor, I mean, to sit down, I mean, I do more sketching with engineers than with designers, and to be able to quickly draw something in 3D and show how something, it comes together or goes apart or is manufactured, and be able to draw, a particular feature of a mold or something like that is so incredibly helpful.
So many things out there, so much stuff, lots of designs, lots of cool product designs. What is your favorite design of all time?
Wow. I'm not sure that I can answer that. There's, like you said, there's so many great products from so many great designers to, at least on my list, so to speak, to choose from. But perhaps the product that I remember being the most impressed with when it first came out, I have to say was the original iPhone. Considering that BlackBerries and Motorola Razrs were pretty much the industry standards at the time, it felt like a piece of alien technology for about a week at least.
That's true.
Absolutely. Well, based on that, how are you reacting to the iPhone 5 now?
I think from a manufacturing perspective, it's fantastic. The fact that they have, optical lasers and 29 megapixel cameras that take pictures of parts to custom match other parts to fit in. I mean, it's super cool.
It's pretty mind-blowing stuff, I admit, but I have to say that when I saw the phone, it was just kind of like, okay, that's cool. They made another iPhone.
Yeah, it's an iPhone. It looks. But I think from a manufacturing perspective, it's amazing, and obviously from what it can do and how effortlessly it does it, it's obviously also super impressive, and it looks like an Apple product probably should look like, But the original one, I mean, that was, everything from, what it did, how it looked, the materials it was made from. I mean, that was the first product that Apple had CNC'd out of a solid block of aluminum.
Well, I would love to. I have a question I would love to throw past you. I was actually having a mini debate with some friends at one of the offices I've been working at recently, just because iPhone 5, everybody's buzzing about it. And the debate is about kind of the relevance of Apple's UI designs at this point. I think Fastco recently did an interesting write-up about the, quote, tackiness of Apple's UIs and the glowing and the bevels and the bubbly this and the shiny that and the virtual bookshelf and all this stuff is really cheesy, according to a lot of designers. And it's actually, when I think about it, it's very much at odds with the kind of austere strictness of the metal exterior. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I would agree that the aesthetics of the user interface is maybe a little bit different than the physical objects themselves, which are quite. Austere sounds negative, but streamlined and simple, and it's all about proportion and very few and well integrated details. So I think they're quite different. Is that a bad thing? Yeah,
but maybe that's a good thing.
I think that's a good thing. Maybe I think more than anything, at least I have to say that everything hangs together. I mean, I'm on a Mac, my computer is a Mac, iPad, iPhone, everything, right? And they all feels somewhat cohesive, even across platforms and so on. And I go over to a PC, and that feels busier. It feels, at least for me, coming from a Mac, and it feels less cohesive.
I'm curious if you've seen any of the Windows 8 stuff or the Windows 8 phone. Or
No,
any
I have
of those
not.
things
I have
yet.
not.
Yeah. It'll just be. I'm really interested to see how the design community reacts to it, because it is very different. So
but I think maybe this is just a guess that maybe why the Apple's interface looks maybe cute or is I think that's close to friendly, and I think that's obviously what Apple's products are. They are easy to use. There are fewer options. I think I'm sure they go through tremendous length making sure that the overall flow of the UI makes sense and so on. So it could very well be deliberate. I would bet money on the fact that it is.
Right, absolutely. Well, Stefan, I am. It pains me to say it, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been even more fun than that time Josh jumped into a hot tub with a hairdryer.
Hey.
Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
If you'd like to send a hot tub to EVDHQ, please address that to Josh.
No, Adam. He'll take that and a hairdryer. We love giving your comments to the lady at the checkout line. Please leave your thoughts at EngineerVsDesigner.com.
Now, if you'd like to see us enjoy the last bit of summer on a slip and slide, be sure to like us, +1 us, tweet us, or whatever else us as social media has been correlated with poorly executed running starts and getting a grass rash on your chest.
I know what that feels like. The show is edited by Simon Martin. Our theme music is by the Red Hook Ramblers.
We'll see you next week. And remember, camping outside of an Apple store is a great idea, and you should send us an iPhone 5.
Look at the size of that screen. That's a big screen.
It's a beauty. That's a beautiful screen right there.
I'll take two.
You know what? You can never have a screen that's too big on a smartphone.
Oh, no, never.
If I could carry around my TV in my pocket, I'd do that.
I would put two. Put two right on my chest.
50-inch TV
with
right in
eyes
my
on
back
them.
pocket. I got a big butt. It fits. Yeah.
I cannot lie. It's true.
All right. Needless and gratuitous. Stop!
Learn how to create complex surfaces in SolidWorks, tricks to tap the depths of Modo, video training that takes you further into the software and gets you up to speed faster. Sign up for free, grab a premium membership, and get the best training. CatJunkie.com.
A production of EVD Media.